Hello once again, and welcome to another edition of the SaskAgToday.com Roundtable. I'm joined by the Chief Agricultural Editor for SaskAgToday.com, Kevin Hirsch, as well as the Agri-News Director for 620 CKRM Regina, Ryan Young. I'm Doug Falconer, Agriculture Director at GX94 in Yorkton. And gentlemen, it's been a couple of weeks since we talked. It's been a slow week, of course, with the Christmas week and the New Year's week, but something that came out just before Christmas was there was an equine herpes case at the Moose Jaw Exhibition Company, and that horse ended up dying. Have you heard of equine herpes much in this province before, Kevin?
No, new one to me, though I'm certainly not an expert on equine diseases, but certainly a blow for Moose Jaw Exhibition, I would think.
Yeah, exactly. And of course, they're still under quarantine until that all clears up. Also, there was a report out over the past week or so that global potash supplies are high, and in fact, they might increase in 2026. Is that good news for farmers?
Well, it should be, but potash is probably the one nutrient that's not priced sky high. Phosphate, on the other hand, has been very expensive. Urea prices are higher than you would hope them to be. We're a huge producer and exporter of potash, obviously, out of Saskatchewan. We're not a huge user. It's behind nitrogen use or phosphate use, and I suspect it's behind sulfur use too, as far as the amount of potash used. So the fact that it may become somewhat less expensive is always good news from a production point of view, but not a big deal to farm balance sheets.
We also heard this week that China is planning on increasing its crop production. That means they want to stabilize their grain production annually and they want to increase their oilseed production. Is that something Canada should be worried about when it comes to exports?
Easier to say than to do until we see some specifics as to how they propose to accomplish this. I don't think it's something to get excited about. Those sorts of increase take research, maybe adoption of genetic modification, editing tools, and that's not something that you see immediate results from. So unless there's something dramatically announced that's going to change the picture, I expect it to be a slow evolution rather than, yes, because the government pronounced it, it has come to be.
Also, as of January 1st, Canada's Grocery Code of Conduct has been brought into effect. Ryan, is this something that you've been following closely over the last year or so?
Yeah, I've been kind of keeping tabs on it here and there. I know it came after a lot of people were complaining about, how prices are and how high they are and concerns over that. We even heard about, the bread price fixing scheme that kind of rocked some companies at one point. So we'll see where it kind of goes from here. It doesn't sound like that it'll affect actual retail prices. It's kind of more just on how companies kind of do business with one another, so to speak. So it's kind of a time will tell type of a thing. Like you say, it just took effect yesterday, so it's going to be a lot of observation.
Kevin, when it comes to a grocery code of conduct, will this have much of an impact on the everyday farmer out there?
I don't think so, although it may have something to do with how grocery stores react with their suppliers, and in some food chains, farmers are dealing directly with grocery chains. Not so much in the grains and oilseeds industry, but in fruits and vegetables and some other things, that's a more common thing to be dealing directly with the grocery chains. And the code of conduct, I believe, has some rules or some principles involved for how you deal with suppliers. It's interesting how the grocery stores are often held up as the villain to rising prices and exorbitant profits, and I think that's largely unfair. There's lots of competition in the grocery sector. The co-ops, for instance, they're owned by the people. If there was huge profits to be made, why couldn't they be offering prices substantially lower than everybody else? Well, because the margins are just not that great in the grocery industry, and inflation the price that producers are able to receive for beef animals now, the increase in coffee prices caused by production problems around the world, they're outside of anything that grocery stores can do anything about. So I think sometimes we look for an easy scapegoat, but by the same token, a code of conduct is not necessarily a bad thing. I just don't think it's going to be a big issue from the farm gate point of view.
We also saw a very late week 20 report from the Ag Transport Coalition on grain transportation for Canadian National and Canadian Pacific Kansas City Railway. Week 19, it was 84% of orders were fulfilled, but down to 80% now. Does that surprise you at all, Kevin?
Actually, it surprises me to the upside. With the cold weather we've had, with the atmospheric river rainfall in Vancouver that may have affected how quickly terminals could load out grain onto vessels, I expected we might see a larger shortfall in the railway performance. We don't like to see any shortfall. We'd like to see the number somewhat higher, but compared to the shortfalls we've seen previous years and the car rationing that started to occur when the weather got cold, you have to say the railways are doing pretty well, but it's certainly something that we're going to have to keep an eye on, especially if the weather continues to, show some true coldness in the weeks ahead.
Well, on New Year's Eve, the United States Department of Agriculture announced their Farmer Bridge Assistance Program, that $11 billion U.S. program for farmers affected by tariffs and trade and all that sort of thing. The way it broke down was, I think the maximum any producer will get will be $155,000 U.S., but it's for a wide variety of crops that have been affected by tariffs and trade. What do you think of this ad hoc program? Will Canada maybe perhaps look at one down the road as well?
Well, it's interesting. It's a very broad brush program. And if you take a look at crops like wheat, soybeans, and corn, the payments are, I think, in the $30, $40, $50 an acre range. And that's a very broad brush to use as far as an assistance program. It is interesting to see, though, that the cap on it is fairly low at that $150,000 per recipient, and that makes the program a little bit more broad-based. I don't see any call for a reaction or something similar in Canada, but I think if March 9th rolls around and the Chinese tariffs on canola and peas remain in place, and if grain prices look as dismal or more dismal by March 9th than they are now, there may be calls saying the federal government should be doing something on this side of the border, although I don't think it would be something as grandiose as what the U.S. has done.
Well, speaking of border issues, we also received word that in Mexico, they've found a couple of new cases of New World screwworm in cattle there. One was close to the U.S. border. The other one's around the Mexico City area. New World screwworm, I know in the past we've talked about it. It doesn't seem like it would ever really be an issue in Canada, but definitely it could affect trade between the three countries.
And it's my understanding that they were at one point starting to think they were getting close to reopening the U.S. border to Mexican live cattle. And I'm certain that with new cases of the New World screwworm showing up, that may be delayed, because it's something that the U.S. very much wants to avoid. All of the experts seem to agree that there's no indication or belief that this could ever become a problem on its own in Canada. But how it affects the trade between Mexico and the U.S. Is something that affects the market and affects cattle prices, so something to watch.
And finally, of course, on the Friday edition of SaskAg Today, Ryan, you had a chance to speak with Bill Przybylski, the president of APAS, and he was looking forward to 2026 on a number of fronts. You found that interview to be rather interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. Just simply asked him what he was looking forward to this year, and the first thing he said right off the bat was collaborating with a couple of different organizations, the Saskatchewan Chamber of Commerce and the Saskatchewan Urban Municipalities Association, on a few things. He said, in his words, that we're all in the same ball game here, so it's better to work together than try to do everything solo. So we'll see where that partnership goes and what they end up doing, if it's fruitful or not. That remains to be seen. The other thing too is the renegotiation of Kuzma. That's going to, in fact, start sometime this month or anytime now. We'll probably see that go on for the majority of the year. And depending on how that goes, that could affect commodities in some way, shape, or form, or agriculture in some way, shape, or form. He's also touched a little bit on growing conditions. He's hoping for better ones, obviously. Of course, he farms west of Yorkton, so I would think he's pretty blessed when it comes to getting an adequate amount of moisture, but knows that there are other areas that weren't as fortunate. So hopefully, some better weather ahead. And I also asked him about crop production. The numbers that we saw over the last few weeks, they're record numbers, especially for Saskatchewan, given all the challenges that we've had. He's hoping that we might keep maintaining that level or exceeding it. So full of optimism on Bill's part, and he's looking forward to the year ahead and any sort of challenges that may come APAS's way.
Kevin, it sounds like APAS has their bearings in the right direction.
I think so, and I believe that APAS is celebrating its 25th anniversary, and I can remember when it was originally set up, grew out of Sask Association of Rural Municipalities. Now they operate pretty separately, and in fact almost compete for attention in some spheres. But APAS, I've been impressed with them over the past year or two, and I'm quite pleased by Bill Bilski's calm demeanor and analysis ability. I think APAS is doing a good job.
Well, that will do it for this week's edition of the SaskAgToday.com Roundtable. On behalf of 620 CKRM Regina Agri-News Director Ryan Young and the Chief Agricultural Editor for SaskAgToday.com, Kevin Hirsch, I'm GX94 Yorkton Agriculture Director Doug Falconer saying so long until next time.